handled the investigation into. Let's head to Canton now, where tonight the town's police audit committee met for the first time since that report was released earlier this week, criticizing how the police handled the investigation into the death of John O'Keefe. That audit, made public on Tuesday, it sparked outrage and renewed calls for transparency and accountability. Tonight's meeting marks a critical moment for a community that's been demanding answers. NBC 10's Michael Rosenfield is live for us in Canton with what was said, and also, Michael, more importantly, I think, what comes next.
Well, Colton, the report indicates that indeed there were problems with the Karen Read investigation, but no evidence of any cover-up in the case.
There are areas of improvement.
The outside company hired to audit the Canton Police Department, presenting its findings.
Remember this guy.
On the sidewalk.
To the Canton Police Audit Committee. Five Stones Intelligence was hired in the wake of the Karen Read investigation to review the entire PD after allegations surfaced that the Read case was mishandled.
We didn't go into this with an agenda. We didn't play gotcha with the police department.
The company found there were mistakes made the day that John O'Keefe's body was found, including evidence collection. O'Keefe's body should have been photographed before it was removed from the scene, and officers should have remained on site until a secondary search for evidence took place later in the day.
Did you see any indications of conspiracies, cover-ups, or corruption?
No. While we found deviations from policy, none of them were intentional, conspiratorial, or with the intent to manipulate evidence.
Despite issues with the Read investigation, Five Stones Intelligence found no indication that any evidence was tampered with, and say there was no effort by Canton Police to frame Read for her boyfriend's death.
Well, they do a very good job, and yeah, they need more training. They need equipment. They've acknowledged some of the deviations from policy, some of the mistakes that were made.
The company says Canton residents should not be worried about the integrity of the police department, but the PD needs to be better financed.
We got to put more money into it. And money's at a premium, but it's a matter of life and death on some of these things. So we'll see where it goes.
So the public was not allowed to comment tonight. Instead, a special meeting has been scheduled for that. That'll take place Saturday afternoon over at Canton High School. The public will get a chance to ask questions about the report. Live in Canton tonight, Michael Rosenfield, NBC 10 Boston.
All right, Michael, thank you. And don't forget, during the trial, we'll be airing Canton Confidential, the Karen Read murder trial, every weeknight at 7. We'll have a full recap of the latest developments from court.
Directly to the chief, and they walk in and hand the chief evidence. She's now a witness. So she's lost, or he's lost that position, that person, they've lost their ability to be impartial and direct any type of investigation, because that personal contact directly to the chief has now put the chief in a bad situation. So, and what, in all candor, what we told the chief is, when you get that call, say, thank you, I understand. I'm gonna have my guys look into it. I need you to call the main line, file a complaint, speak to the desk sergeant, let my desk sergeant take it. He's going to take it, hand it to my chief of operations over investigations, and we're going to act accordingly.
And take the case, take it the way it should be taken.
So there would have been multiple cases where that happened with that, what I presume to be the same select board member. So did you find
That was the only case
any of that
we
in your
discovered.
findings? Because there's cases where that member's called, you know, his brother who's a detective. There's cases
Well,
where
ironically,
called.
that member,
Referencing?
that member wasn't the one that called. So,
Who was the member?
I think it should be spoken at a public meeting.
yeah, you know, we worked very hard to not put names in the report like that, but what I can tell you is the person that made the call was not the gentleman you're thinking.
How do you know who I'm thinking?
You said the brother.
Yeah.
Well, it's on the board. There's one of 5 people.
You said his brother's a
Said his brother's a
detective, so I took that as a clue and connected the dots.
Okay, just to move on a little bit, you talk about financial constraints and the use of cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And which financial reports did you review?
I don't understand your question.
So you're talking, your report mentions many times how they're financially constrained from, for instance, for doing training,
Yeah.
financially constrained for maybe offering cell phones, financially constrained in maybe cameras, and other capacities you mentioned in here. So
Well, we said
what is your financial constraint basis based off of?
The fact that they used $383,000 of asset forfeiture money to pay salaries. That's money that could be spent on training. So there's a deficiency right there in just their straight budget to pay the officers to meet minimum requirements as required by the state of Massachusetts.
So within the financial numbers, if you were to look at them, you would see there's a $45,000 allocation every fiscal year for personal office or cell phones. And we've talked about, I'm on the finance committee in this town, so I go through the budgetary process annually.
Sure.
And every year that comes up, so we've talked to the current chief of police about that on our committee. And, you know, what was told about the policy is, hey, officers don't want to have two cell phones. We have a policy directed by the leadership that says, hey, we're just going to allow you to use your personal cell phone and we'll stipend you out on it, which was, I believe, maybe a result of collective bargaining. But is the department really financially constrained by issuing cell phones when they're paying for their personal cell phones but not their work cell phone?
I think you're paying $700 a year per officer for cell phones, right? Is that about right?
45,000?
Yeah,
I don't have the breakdown per officer, they
I
don't
think we were
provide us that
told
data.
it's $700 per year for their phone usage, where you can take that money, issue them department-issued phones, and then whatever labor negotiations you get in with the union, then, you know,
So technically, that's not a
between the
financial
union and the town.
constraint
Well,
if it's in the budget.
Well, what we said was, we don't know if that'll be a financial constraint. Our recommendation is they should never use their personal phone. What you have in front of you and what you're referencing is a union issue, which we have no ability to negotiate. The union has that in their contract, or each officer receives a certain amount of money to purchase a phone. So when you say the officers don't want to carry two phones, all right, I'm a career lifelong law enforcement officer. I can't make you happy. So you got to act what's in best for the town. And what is in the best interest of the town is for these guys to have a department-issued phone. And if that means you take the stipend away and use that money to purchase a department-issued phone, that's a town decision. So when we talk about financial constraints, they're the type of decisions we don't have the authority to make. What we can say is, this is what you do, this is what we recommend. One way to bridge that is possibly this,
So it's,
prior to the state police getting there.
and thank you for those comments. So I just want to put things into perspective. We had a case that involved rubber ducks being put in front of someone's business. And in that report, you know, the officer notes, through my training and experience. So say, not knocking their training, it seems like they're putting it in a positive light based on the context of it. And they wrote a 38-page or so page report about play money and rubber ducks, and took substantial pictures and video evidence. So it seems like they're well-trained, but they didn't do that in murder cases where some of their friends or coworkers may have been involved in. Which, well, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but it's,
So what you have, you have two different investigations. So the rubber duck investigation that you're referring to was led by, spearheaded, and controlled by the Canton Police Department. There's been a overwhelming thought that every time you have an unintended death, the Canton PD's recused and they should step away. So that has almost become sort of an adopted posture of, well, the Mass State Police are going to do this and we're going to step back. And what we're saying is, no, you should never step back. That unintended death should be handled the same way the rubber duck case, which was handled appropriately.
exactly.
You should apply those standards to unintended deaths as well.
And then just a couple last comments in regards to the, you said the DVR had 800 days, which is maybe almost 2.5 years of
As it relates to
of
the
storage
exterior
of
cameras.
videos.
Yes.
And you said that all of the cameras were analog, but in 2019, we had a capital planning request that actually updated some of the cameras to digital at the Canton Police Department. Were you able to see that some of those were digital and some of them weren't digital? There were some of them analog?
I don't know. I remember speaking to the IT gentleman, and that's where we gleaned this information. I know there are cameras in the process of being switched out. The mirrored camera with